Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make Choux Pastry Swans with a really yummy homemade chocolate sauce. To make your choux pastry, you will need half a cup of butter cut into small pieces, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 4 eggs, and 1 cup of water. And because this dish is rather elegant, I think we need to wear a hat. And we're ready to begin. To prepare your choux swans for baking, take a piece of parchment paper and line a baking tray. I have drawn guidelines on the paper, starting about 1 inch from the top and making them 2.5 inches wide with a 1 inch gap in between until you fill up the paper. You may want to eyeball it, but I should warn you that by the time you get to this side of the paper, your swans may have grown in size. So I prefer to stick with the lines. Once you've drawn the lines on the paper, flip your paper over so that you have a clean side to work with. To make your choux pastry, take your 1/2 cup of butter and place it in the saucepan, along with the cup of water and your 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Before we start cooking our choux pastry, we need to get the flour ready as it needs to go into the liquid ingredients all in one go. So I'm going to take a piece of parchment paper and I'm going to sieve my flour onto the paper. Now we're ready to go over to the stove to cook the pastry. Now that our water has come to the boil and the butter has completely melted, we're going to remove this pan from the heat. We're going to take your pre-sifted flour and add it all at once to the mixture. And then take a spoon and start to stir and scrape the sides of the pan. And you can see the mixture is beginning to form a ball, which is what we want. I'm going to turn the heat down and we're going to continue cooking for a few more minutes until the mixture leaves the sides of the pan. Now that we've cooked the mixture over a low heat for several minutes and we can see that it's forming a ball and leaving the sides of the pan, we can shut the heat off and let it cool down for a few minutes before we add the eggs. Now that we have our dough nicely cooked and it's forming a ball in the pan, we're going to add our eggs, which have been beaten, and we're going to add them very slowly, a little bit at a time. And we're going to beat between each addition. Just make sure that everything is thoroughly incorporated before you put your next batch of eggs in the pan. Now you don't want your dough to be too runny because we're going to pipe it onto the tray and we want it to hold its shape. So this is what we're ending up with, is a nice glossy mixture, but you want it to hold its shape and still be a little bit soft. So now we're ready to pipe the swans. To pipe out your swans, you're going to need 2 pastry bags. These are about probably 16 inches and I purchased them from our local kitchen supply store. And they're disposable. I have washed them out and used them again, however, if you want to be thrifty. One of them needs to be fitted with a largish nozzle. It doesn't have to be star, but the star will give you a nice pattern on the swans' bodies. And then the other one is for the swan's neck, and this is a plain nozzle, and it's about 3/8 to half an inch wide, and this one has to be plain. So I'm going to cut the ends off these bags. Be careful not to cut too much off, because once you've done that, the nozzle will just come out and you won't be able to use the bag. So just start off a little bit modestly to make sure that you haven't cut too much off. And if you need to recut, then you can. This one I'll mark my spot, and then I'll recut it. Move those bits out the way. And that one is ready to go. Now with this nozzle, I know I'm going to have to wrap a bit of Scotch tape around it because it is rather thin. Again, we do the same thing. Don't cut too much off in case your nozzle comes through. And you can see that I've got a gap here between the bag and the nozzle. And if that happens, just take a piece of Scotch tape and wrap it tightly around the top so that your mixture doesn't go between the bag and the nozzle. And now we have 2 bags ready for piping our swans. I've now filled my piping bags with the choux pastry mixture. If you're having a little bit of trouble managing the bags while you're filling them up, just set them into a jug like this, and you can wrap the tops over the edge of the jug and open the bag out while you're filling it. So I've put slightly less pastry into this bag because this is going to be for the heads and the necks, and this is going to be for the bodies, the one with the larger nozzles, so we have a little bit more mixture in this bag. I'm now going to start piping the swans' bodies. If you need to do a practice, you can just do it onto a plate or your countertop. And again, I'm going to pipe between the 2 pencil lines that are about 2.5 inches apart. So we want to make a big shape and then ease off for the back of the swan. And leave a gap between the swan bodies for expansion. Now I'm going to do the necks, and we're going to look for a kind of a question mark shape. You might need to pipe a few before you get the hang of it. And for the beak, just do an extra little squirt right on the end. Now that you've piped your bodies and your necks, if you've got any leftover egg, mix it with a teaspoon of water, or you can just break a new egg into your jug. And we're going to very lightly brush the dough with the egg to give it a nice golden finish after it comes out of the oven. Now these are ready to go into a 375-degree preheated oven. The necks are going to take less time to cook than the bodies. So I would check your swan necks probably after about 10 minutes. If you're worried, then maybe make it 8 minutes. And then the bodies will take about an extra 20 minutes to cook. So I think my necks of my swans should be ready by now. So I'm just gonna quickly remove it from the oven and gently lift them off on the rack. And I'm just gonna give the bodies maybe about 10 minutes longer. You're probably gonna have to eyeball this a little bit. And then once those are cooked, we'll be ready to finish decorating them. Now I'm going to remove the bodies from the oven. As you can see, they're nice and golden. And when you take them out, just cut a little slit about a third of the way down to let the steam escape. And then we're going to use that slit later as a guide for cutting the tops off to make the wings for our swans. Now that my swans have cooked and they've cooled down completely, I'm going to start making the wings. So you take the body of your swan, and remember we put our little cut in here to let the steam escape, and we're going to carry on cutting along the top until that part has come off, and then just cut your lid into 2 pieces, and those are going to be your wings. Now some of them might disintegrate as you're cutting, that's fine. You can just either snack on those or put them in your green bin or give them to your dog. Now that we've cut our wings for our swans, we're going to fill them with cream. And I have some whipped cream here in the bowl. I've sweetened it with a little bit of sugar. You can use maple syrup if you like, and the sugar can either be icing sugar or granulated sugar. And I'm going to put this whipped cream into my piping bag. As you can see, I'm using my jug just to hold the piping bag open. And in goes the cream. And push the cream down to the end of your piping bag. And now I pipe the cream into the swans. Then you take your wings and press them in like so. And then you put your necks in the front. Now if you need to break the bottom off, you can do that so that the head sticks up like that. Now we're ready for our chocolate sauce, and we're almost finished. For our yummy chocolate sauce, I've boiled 1 cup of whipping cream with 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, or you can use golden syrup if you're British like me. Bring it to a nice boil, and then we're going to put in 4 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate and 2 ounces of milk chocolate. We're going to put that into the hot cream and give it a good stir. So here we have it, our final product, 7 swans are swimming on the chocolate sauce. This is for probably like if you had a buffet or something like that and you wanted all the swans on a big plate. If you wanted to serve an individual swan, then here's one swimming on his own. And as the final touch, I'm just going to dust them with some icing sugar. And there we are. Bon appetit, and thank you for watching.